Twin looks a little bit like Mark.
Okay.
You always bring me into this, Marshall. Love you, man. Right back at you.
Okay, so now if you remembered yesterday, I guess first of all we should tell you that the shir is dedicated by A.B. Spry for the safety of our troops and for the nitzachon and protection of all of Klal Yisrael all over the world. We also are sponsored by Shimon Klein, Lili Nishmas Asher Anshel ben Yehuda Gittel by Shimon Pinchas by Irving Fishbaum, Lefu Shalema for Issa ben Rezel, Eliezer ben Rezel, Meir ben Chaya Sarah, and if you remember, let me welcome in everybody, Irving Fishbaum and Dr. Elliot Udell, and Eddie Chazan, Mark Frankel. We missed you last night, Mark. Yitz Fuchs, Mel Zachter, Jay Siegel, A.B. Spry, Baruch Ian, Marshall Kasson, Nachman Chapler, Shalom Fogel, Yisrael Fisher. Yisrael, we wish you a refuah shalema, b'sech shechel Yisrael. Moshe Lehman, I mean, I want you here, but not that badly. Not that badly. I mean, I don't mind if it's cold and windy somewhere else, but I don't want you that badly. Moshe Lehman, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Ilya Shutman, and we are broadcasting here from Monsey, New York this evening, and we are holding at the top of Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, learning. Don't be confused if you're listening on TorahAnytime.com and you'll say Rabbi Weiss is got the wrong daf. We are a day ahead. Tomorrow night there will not be a shir. If you remember, we discussed last night that which has Kedusha Shvius, of course, food has the holiness of Shvius. And when we say holiness of Shvius, therefore you can't use it for commerce. It's la'achla v'loy l'schaira. And then when the product is not available in the field anymore from the animals, then you have to get rid of it from the house. That's called the Zman Habir, the time of destruction. As we welcome in Rabbi Kranz joining us this evening. He's number 18, Chaitzim Levin, and we said that wood for fuel does not have Kedusha Shvius, because the only thing that has Kedusha Shvius is la'achla, something that is like consumption, where hana ubi uran shava, where the benefit and the consumption happens at the same time. Now that when you eat it, you benefit from it. But wood, it gets burnt, and then only afterwards does the coals give you the benefit of the heat. So therefore, that which is wood for fuel, it does not have Kedusha Shvius. That's what we said last night. On the other hand, we said that if it's for example, if you have a dye, like the aftergrowth of madder and woad, these are dyes. The dye gives benefit as it's being consumed, then it would have Kedusha Shvius. We said also, eitzim, which we called oily wood, which you burn and it gives light, so there its consumption happens at the time of the benefit. It would have Kedusha Shvius. Now the Gemara tells us, as we learn the top line of Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, as we welcome in Shelley Zeitlin joining us, and Moshe Lehman, Berish Gesserman. I waited to give some time for people to come back from shul. That's why we did the Mishnah Yomis first. It's good to have you, Berish. So the Gemara tells us, Amar Rav Kahana, ve'etzim lahasaka Wood for fuel, actually tanoihi. It's actually a machlokes tanoim if there is kedusha shvius. The Tanya, ein moisin peris l'shvius. You cannot use the fruit of shvius, loyla mishra, not to steep flax, v'loyla kfusa, and not for laundering, because these are commercial purposes, and that goes into the prohibition of la'achla v'loyla schayra. But that means that there is kedusha shvius when you use it for steeping. Rabbi Yaisi says no. You could use fruit of shvius for the steeping flax and for the laundry, because that is not considered. If you use wine for that purpose, let's say you introduce wine into the pool that you steep flax, or into the laundry, since it's not designated for eating, it doesn't have kedusha shvius. So now let's see what's the machlokes over here. My time of the Rabbanan, Amakra, the Rabbanan hold that the Torah says la'achla, that you could eat it, v'loyla mishra, you can't use it to steep flax. La'achla v'loyla kfusa, you can't use it for laundry. Rabbi Yaisi says, Amakra lachem, the pasuk says, lachem lichol tzarchechem, you could use it for all your needs. Says Gemara, v'rabbanan nami haksiv lachem, it says lachem, shouldn't that include for all your needs? Says the Gemara, lachem dumya de la'achla, you're allowed to use it similar to eating. B'mi shehanasa yubi uray shavin, where the benefit and the consumption comes at the same time. Yotzu mishro kvusa, that excludes steeping it in the flax, and kvusa and the laundry, where the benefit comes only 2 or 3 days afterwards. Shanosan achar biuran. So that is not allowed to be done with perish shvuas. Rabbi Yossi nami haksiv la'achla, the Torah says to eat it. The Tanya, you could use perish shvius to eat, but you can't use it for a medicated bandage. Or maybe it's coming to exclude that you can't use it for the laundry. That includes that you could use it for the laundry. You can't use it for a medicated bandage. So the Gemara asks the obvious question: why do you include laundry and exclude the medicated bandage? Why do you include the laundry and exclude the medicated bandage? I include the laundry. It's the same by all people. All people need laundry. I exclude a medicated bandage that's a specialized case. Says Gemara, who says that you're not allowed to use perish shvius for only specialized activities? For eating and not for medicated bandages. You could use it for eating, but you can't spray it to give a fragrant aroma. In aristocratic houses, they used to spray. Remember, they had earthenware floors, and they lived near animals, so they would spray wine to give the house a nice aroma. But that was only aristocratic families. You could eat it, but you can't make an emetic out of it in order to vomit. You can't use that. Again, that's only specialized. It's only medicinal. It's like a medicated bandage. Command, obviously this is going to Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi only excludes the malugma, the medicated bandage. He doesn't exclude the wash and the steeping the flax. The Rabbanan, It's not only these things that are not for general use. Economy mishra kvusa. The Rabbanan say you can't even steep flax in it. You can't even do the laundry. Rabbi Yehuda argues with Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ima shvach yisera ala yitzia." If Marshall messes up, if the improvement is more than the expense, then I only have to pay him the expense. If the expense is more than the improvement, then I only have to pay him the improvement. Yosef Rabbi Yosef Achure de Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Yosef was sitting behind Rabbi Abba. Yosef Rabbi Yosef Achure de Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Yosef was sitting behind Rabbi Abba. Kamei de Rav Huna, in front of Rav Huna. V'Yosef Rav Huna v'Kamer, and Rav Huna was sitting, and he said the following halacha. Halacha k'Reb Yeshua ben Karcha. The law follows Reb Yeshua ben Karcha. V'Halacha k'Reb Yehuda. These are two unrelated psakim that he gives. He gives the halachas like Reb Yeshua ben Karcha, and halachas like Reb Yehuda. Adrinu Rav Yosef la'ape. Rav Yosef turned his face to show that he was displeased. In those days, the Rebbe's, every inflection of the Rebbe meant something. And from the fact that he turned his face, you could already deduce that he wasn't pleased. So, Omar, he said, when they looked at him in askance, why is he turning his face in displeasure? So he says, look, we don't say anything that's unnecessary. We don't say anything that is not needed to be said. So the Gemara tells us that he says, I understand. I understand. I'm a Bishleimer Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. I understand as we welcome in Reb Avram Rezepkovitz. It's wonderful to have you joining us, Chaim Kramer. It's wonderful to have you. So I understand why you have to tell me that the halacha, as we welcome in Shaul Goldstein. Wow, Shaul Goldstein, a wonderful Talmud from the past. What a pleasure to have you join us. So the Gemara tells us, Bishlam Yeshua ben Karcha Itzrich, you need to say that the halacha is, because he argues with the majority, and normally we go after the majority. So I would have thought, Yochid v'Rabin, an individual against the majority, halach k'Rabin, k'mash malan, halach k'Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. So the Gemara says, could you tell me what Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha you're talking about? I mean, the Gemara says, halach k'Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. You didn't tell us what Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says. So the Gemara says, Mayi, what did Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha say? The Tanya Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha oimer milva b'shtar. If, let's say, I have a promissory note from a guy. So, since I have it in writing, there's a halacha in Masechtas Avodah Zarah. We talked about this idea on Shabbos when Beresh Kesseman gave his beautiful presentation. So he spoke about a pasuk in last week's parsha. V'shem Elohim acherim lo yisaskiru. You should not be the cause of having a goyish idol being mentioned. You should not even cause it to be mentioned. And that's why we said that Esther left out, Mordechai and Esther left out every name of Hashem in the Megillah, because they knew the Megillah was going to be introduced into the chronicles of Paras and Madai, Persia and Mede, and they would substitute Hashem's name for their gods. And then you would be causing a Goyish god to be said. So therefore they left out any name of Hashem, so it shouldn't cause them to put in their Goyish god. So because there's a halacha of B'Shem Elohim Acherim Lo Yisaskiru, you're not supposed to do something for a guy near his holiday because then that's going to cause him to thank his deity on his holiday. On his holiday, he's focused on his deity. So therefore, you're not supposed to pay a debt right before his holiday. Because then on his holiday, he's going to go and say, thank you, Zeus. Thank you, Swami. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says that milva b'shtar, if you have a promissory note, ein nifra mehen, you can't take payment right before their holiday. But milva al peh, but if it's an oral loan and you don't have any proof, nifra mehen, then you could take payment, because you got to take payment because maybe later, since you don't have any proof, he might not pay you. It's like saving it from their hands. Now the rabbis say that you can't even take payment for an oral loan before their holiday. So the halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Rabbi Yossi says, I understand why you had to say that. Ela halacha ka Rabbi Yehuda, but the law is like Rabbi Yehuda. I don't understand why you had to say that. Lamali. This is a case of machloikis va'achakach stam. It's a machloikis between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. And then afterwards we have an anonymous Mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda. And therefore we know that if there's a machlokes and then Rebbe made an anonymous Mishnah like one of them, we paskin like that. Machlokes v'achach stam, halacha kistam. And therefore, why do you have to tell me that halacha? It's like Rabbi Yehuda. The regular klolim in Shas, that if you have a machlokes followed by an anonymous Mishnah, you paskin like the anonymous Mishnah. And out of Gemara says, where is this a machlokes v'achach stam? Machlokes b'Bava Kama, where Litzvaya lo yadam, I told Marshall to dye it red, b'tzava shachar, and he dyes it black. Shachar b'tzava yadam, I tell him to dye it black, and he dyes it red. Rameir says Marshall acquires the change, and therefore he only has to pay me the wool. Nice like to make some, right? But Rabbi Yehuda says no. Imashvach yes, he returns me the wool, and if the improvement is more than the expense, then I only have to refund him the expense. And if the expense is more than the improvement, I only have to give him the improvement. And where do we have a stam mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda? The stam b'Bava Metzia. The nan kol mishana, whoever deviates, and that's Marshall. He deviated. I told him black and he did red. I told him red, he did black. Yodei ala tachtoina. His hand is on the, as it is usually by Marshall, he has the weaker hand, right? He has the, we know that, Marshall. You don't have to give, you don't have to, my wife is sitting here, and she said, I know all about it. Why are my hands on my but what she really said, Marshall, is she's not masking.
I got somebody on my side.
She said you should pay through the nose.
I don't believe you.
She didn't. I can't tell a lie. I can't. My nose is growing long. But anyway, so the Gemara says the stam mishnah b'Bava Metzia is the one that deviates has the weaker hand. So that's also like Rabbi Yehuda. And whoever reneges yodei ala tachtoina. Now what that means, we'll learn about in Bava Metzia. But the bottom line is a stam mishnah like Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, Rav Yosef was displeased. Why did Rav Huna have to say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda if it's a machlokes v'achach stam? Says Rav Huna. Why did Rav Huna? We have to explain Rav Huna. Why does Rav Huna have to do it? Rav Huna, it's good to see that we're back to 27 Zoomers over here. A little bit late here tonight, but as we welcome in Saba, who's joining us, and Saba, we're holding on Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, and we're holding by Rav Huna, which is 8 lines from the bottom of Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. 8 lines from the bottom of Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. Now, why did Rav Huna see it necessary to say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? Itzrich. So kedaita chamina ein seder lemishnah. maybe we'll say that is like the Torah, ein muktam u'u'ucher b'Torah. There's no order in the Torah. I might say there's no order in the Mishnah, and therefore maybe we could view it as a stam v'achkach machloikis, and we don't paskin like a stam v'achkach machloikis. Rav Huna Itzruk Sokdai Tramina ain't say the Mishnah, and then maybe it's a stam v'achkach machloikisi. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Rabbi Yosef says, if you say there's no order, then you just busted the rule of machloikis v'achkach stam. Rabbi Yosef, ihachi kol machloikis v'achkach stama. How do you say we paskin like it? Neima ain't say the Mishnah, and maybe it's a stam v'achkach machloikisi. So Rav Huna answers, kiloi amrinon ain't say the Mishnah. When do we say that there's no order? Bechad mesechta. Aval betray mesechta, but in two mesechtas, amrinon. Where do we say that there's no say? Where do we say? Where do we say that this is a double negative? Where are we loy amrinon ain't say the Mishnah? In other words, where do we say that there's an order, and therefore you could bring a raya to a machloikis v'achakach stam? That's where they're both in the same mesechta. Aval betray mesechtas. Here, one is in mesechtas Bava Kama, and the other one is in mesechtas Bava Metzia. Amrina, we could say ain't say the Mishnah. While Rav Yosef canters, this is not considered two mesechtas. All three mesechtas, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, and Bava Basra, is one mesechta called Nezikin. And Bava Kama, Bava means a gate. Bava Kama is the first gate. Bava Metzia is the middle gate, and Bava Basra is the last gate. And he therefore says, Rabbi Yosef, Kula Nizikin Chadam Mesechta. It's all one Mesechta, and since it's all one Mesechta, we say Yesh Seder Mishnah, and therefore this is a Machloikis V'achkach Stam, and therefore you don't have to say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. The Iba Yisema, the reason for Rabbi Yosef is because the Mishnah over there in Bava Metzia is saying halacha psukais. It's saying definitive halachas. Mishum de ketani lu gabi hilchas psikta. It says it by definitive halachas. Kol amashani yada ala taktaina. Whoever deviates has the weaker hand. That's a definitive halacha. Kol achayze yada ala taktaina. Whoever reneges has a weaker hand. And therefore, I know that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, what you said was superfluous. And by the way, as we welcome in Dr. Block, who's just joined us, and it's good to have Moshe.
I just want to say it's not because of the football game.
Okay, I wasn't chayshid you.
I was.
I wasn't chayshid you, and I do say in credit to this chashuv olam that on a night that they have something going on, we have a full complement of 28 Zoomers here this evening. It's really nice. Actually, it's 29 with Michal coming in, and I want to welcome in Rich Leonard, who is joining us, Shelley Zeitlin, who's here in the flesh, and Naftali Javelin, who's just joining us, 29 Zoomers, and it's a real credit to everybody. It's reminiscent of something that happened. I don't know if people know over here what a Subway Series is, but I remember on the 7th game of the World Series of the Subway Series, for those that don't know, that's when the Mets played the Yankees. It's called the Subway. It's called the Subway Series because they go from one stadium to another in the subway. So I was giving my daf in the Aguda at 8:00, and I said, "Wow, the 7th game of the World Series, and everybody's here, and we had a full complement of people, and everybody's smiling and everything. Irving was there." Mel was there at the time, I remember. And anyway, Saba was there. And I come to Borough Park, and the game was still going on. I was listening to it in the car while I was driving from Staten Island to Borough Park, but don't tell anybody that. But I get to Borough Park, and I say, "Wow, a Subway Series, and the whole Olam is here." And I remember Reb Finkel of Shalom. I remember he looked at me and he said, "Is that a type of sandwich? What's a Subway series? What's a Subway series?" And people really didn't know. I just met Reb Fink's grandson when I was davening in Satmar, and I let him know. He came to my shir in the Aguda every night for 30 years. His neshama should have a lichtige Gan Eden. Anyway.
Nicer question?
What? Yes.
Okay, we mentioned before about the paying a goy right before the holiday so they don't come to thank their deity, all of a sudden they have money. So I sent the chat out, but the curiosity, I give out gifts to our suppliers and everything.
It's better to give the gifts before New Year's than before Kratzma.
We try to do it Hanukkah time. I tell them it's a Hanukkah bonus.
That's for sure good.
Yeah, but every so often you get someone to say, "Oh, thank you, JC," and I say, "That's not my name."
All right, but you don't. Again, it's not before. But if you're going to give it around the season, I always tell people to give it by New Year's and not on by Xmas, for that reason. Okay, now, bottom line, Daf Kuf Beis Amud Aleph. Tan Rabbanan. Hanoisein mois lishluchai. So I give money to Marshall, and I tell him that the money Marshall is likach loichitim. Now, we're going to see that this might be that I was going into something came over to me. I had a momentary, I don't know what it was, that I would ask Marshall to do this. But no, it could be I was distracted. But I meant to ask Mark, and I said Marshall instead, for whatever the reason is. But I gave Marshall money to purchase wheat. And of course, it's Marshall. V'lokach man siren, and he bought barley. Or I tell him to buy siren, buy barley. V'lokach man chitin, and he buys wheat. Tanya Choda, in one brayse it teaches, in pichsu pichsulai, since Marshall deviated, he acquired it. And therefore, if he bought the barley, he acquired it. I told him to buy wheat, he bought barley, he acquired the barley, and then, in pichsu pichsulai, if it goes down in value, he suffers the loss. If he profits, he gets the profit. But Tani Chada, but another teaches that impichsu, since he deviated, if it suffered a loss, pichsulai, he has to bear the loss. V'moisiru, but if there was a profit, since I gave him the money as a business adventure, if there's a profit, we split the profit. So the Gemara says, Amar Reb Yochanan. So Reb Yochanan says, Loi kasha, ha Reb Meir. One is going according to Reb Meir that when he's mishaneh, when he deviates, he acquires it. And therefore, since he acquires the barley, since he deviated from the wheat, so if it goes down, he suffers the loss. But if it goes up, he gets the profit because he was kainet b'shinoi. While the Reb Yehuda, who says that the mishaneh is yodei ala atachtoina, he deviates, his hand is weaker. And therefore he gets the profit or he suffers a loss. He doesn't acquire it. Who says? Dilma Adkan loikam Reb Meir ela b'midei dechazi legufe, where it's fit for Marshall's use himself. But if it's for merchandise, if it was business, we don't say that he acquires it, because my idea is he should engage in something profitable. So if it ends up being profitable, so I get 50%. Both are going according to Rameir. If I told him to buy it for me to eat, and instead of buying me wheat, he bought me barley, so then he's kainet b'shinoi. It wasn't a business venture. and therefore it's his, both for loss and for profit. If my original intention is that it should be for a business venture, so then if it goes up, we share it 50-50. So the Gemara says, Machku Allah b'marava. They mocked this in the Marava, the west. Eretz Yisrael is to the west of Babel. So whenever it says in Talmud Bavli to the west, it means Eretz Yisrael. And in Eretz Yisrael, they mocked the suggestion of Rabbi Yochanan that one is going according to Rabbi Yehuda, and that if you hold Shino Yaina Kaina, so then if it goes up, we split the profit. And the Gemara asks, the Rabbi Yochanan Ali Rabbi Yehuda, who let the owner of the wheat know since I told Marshall to buy me barley, and Marshall went ahead and bought wheat. When Marshall bought wheat, how could half of it accrue to me? How could it not half of it? How could it accrue to me? Who told him to be marking it to me? I never said to buy me barley. I never said to buy me wheat. I said to buy what? Barley. Says the Gemara, Maskva of Shmuel bar Samrati. If that's so, in other words, if you're saying that who said that he's buying it for me, well, even if he buys chitin, Marshall is buying chitin for himself. He didn't tell the merchant he's buying it for me. How does it accrue to me? Afilu chitin, the chitin nami. So the Gemara says chitin nami lo. So the Gemara says Pashat, no, because if he buys what I told him to buy, then he's my shliach, and shlucha shaladim k'maisei. Amri Rabbi Yevo shani chitin v'chitin the shlichusei kavod the chi balabayis dummy, and it's like I'm buying it. Teda the Tanan echad amakdish nechasav, one who dedicates his estate, the echad amarich es atzmai, or if I pledge my value, the din is ein loy biksus ishtoi, included in what I dedicate is not my wife's clothing, v'loy biksus banav, not my children's clothing, but more than that, v'loy b'tseva shetzava lishman, nor what I died for them, even if I didn't give it to them yet, v'loy b'sandolim chadoshim shelokon lishman, nor shoes that I bought for them. So the Gemara says, v'amai, why? The only way it's not going to be dedicated is only because it's designated for my wife and for my children. But leima hachanami mihai deal tzava, who let the dyer know sheyikva tzava isha, that the dye should go to the wife. But that's different, because we say that I did the shlichus when I bought it for my wife. I bought it for my children. Hachanami, when I told Marshall to buy wheat, and he buys the wheat, Hachanami shlichusei kavid ukiyad balabayis dami. So the Gemara says, well, that's not a good proof. Maybe it's simply that Amar Rab Abba loy kol hamachdish nechasav, whoever dedicates his estate, ein daitay al ksus ishtoi abanav. He doesn't have in mind that which is designated for his wife or for his children. Not because he doesn't have that in mind. Says Gemara, Masker Reb Zeir, v'chi daitay shaladim al tefillah. Does he have in mind to give away his tefillin? Yet v'tanan hamakdish nechasav malin loy tefillin. The din is that he's makdish his nechasim, he has to he has to evaluate the tefillin and redeem them. But does he have in mind to give away his tefillin? Says the Gemara, yes. Amalei by in. Daite shaladam al tefillin, because he thinks he's doing a mitzvah. Hamakdish dechasiv savar mitzvah kavinda. However, vein daite shaladam al ksus ishtoyabanav. But he doesn't have in mind to give away his wife's and his children's clothing because he knows that would cause enmity. Mishum eva. Says the Gemara, Maskeva of Aisha, V'aloi chayve arochin shanukan. We're talking about that which is a person obligates himself to erech arochin. Arochin is if a person says erki alai, so he has to give a fixed amount according to his age and gender. B'tanan chayove arochin. If you're responsible, those that are responsible to give a dedication of arochin, memashkinin aisan. We forcibly take collateral for him if he doesn't pay. We come and we take his leichter. Does a person have in mind that he should be forcibly, collateral should be removed from his house? Says the Gemara, rather, what it means is, if somebody dedicates his estate, we have in mind, we say that anything that he bought for his wife or his children, before he made the dedication, he transmitted it to them. He gave it over to them. So even if they didn't use it yet, but he had in mind that it should be for them. Now, Tan Rabbanan, halikeach, this is wild. Halikeach soda b'shem chaveroi. If Marshall goes and buys a piece of property, and he says he doesn't want to have problems, that people will come and say, no, that property, he went ahead and bought the property from Mark. He doesn't want people to come, people like Rich, to come and say, that wasn't Mark's property, that was my property. Or Yisrael Fisher, while he's in Tannersville and nobody knows who he is, he says, that was my property. So Marshall doesn't want to have that problem. So Marshall says, I'm buying it for the Reish Galusa. Oh, he's buying it for the Reish Galusa. Nobody's going to come out of the woodwork because nobody wants to start up with the Reish Galusa. Marshall's really buying it for himself. But he says, I'm buying it for the Reish Galusa so that Rich or Yisrael Fisher in Tannersville or Rich in who knows where, Manabel Papapo, Rich, they'll come out of the woodwork and say that it's mine. So Marshall buys it in the name of the Reish Galusa. Now, you get a load of this. Now he wants the Reish Galusa, since the Shtar says Reish Galusa, he wants the Reish Galusa to say that I'm selling it to you. Because, he has a paper that's the Reish Galusa's. So, Ein Kaifin Oisai Limkar. We don't force the Reish Galusa to give Marshall a Shtar saying, well, I'm selling it to Marshall. V'im amaloi almanas, but if when he buys it from Mark, he says on the condition that the Reish Galusa will then write that it's mine, then kaifin aisai limka. Then we force the Reish Galusa, which, by the way, as I'm saying it, it doesn't make sense. Why should Marshall be able to force the Reish Galusa? Because the Reish Galusa says, keep me out of your business, Marshall. I just have to listen to Rabbi Weiss's daf once or twice, and I know I don't want to have anything to do with you. Right? Why should the Reish Galusa have to do anything, even if Marshall says on the condition So the Gemara says, Micah Amar. First the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Amar of Sheshes Hachi Kama. And the Gemara now explains it like I told you. If Marshall buys a field from Mark b'shem Reish Galusa, in the name of the Reish Galusa, because he doesn't want people like Rich or Eddie or Yisrael Fisher, he doesn't want them coming out of the woodworks to say that it's really theirs. Ain't kaifin I say Reish Galusa limka. We don't force the Reish Galusa to give him a sale that really it's not the Reish Galusa, it's really Marshall, he paid for it. V'im Amar Albanas, if he says on the condition, kaifin as Reish Galusa limka. So now, this doesn't make any sense. Amar, halakech sada b'shem Reish Galusa, if he buys a field in the name of the Reish Galusa, ain't kaifin I say Reish Galusa limka. Says the Gemara, but that means that Marshall acquires it? How does Marshall acquire it at all? He bought it for the Reish Galusa. Mark would have the right to deliver it to the Reish Galusa, not the Marshall. Michlal the Mikna Kanyale? Lema Pligi the Marava. Let's say this is in controversy with the people of Eretz Yisrael. The Imre, who let Mark know to be maknet to Marshall? He said he's buying it for the Reish Galusa. Says no. It's no difficulty. He told Mark, look, I'm paying the money. I'm really buying it for myself. And he told that to the witnesses. He says, I'm only saying this because I don't want people coming out of the woodwork and making problems. But the Gemara says, why should the Reish Galusa have to play ball? If he says on the condition, we force the Reish Galusa to write a note that it's really Marshall's. Amai. The Reish Galusa could say, Lo yakraichu. I don't need your honor that you do it in my name so people shouldn't start up. And I don't need your disgrace that people should say I need to sell land to Marshall. I'm not doing anything. Ella Amar Abaya Hachi Kama. We got to change the story over here. Halakech Sada b'shem Chaveirei. If Marshall buys a field in the name of the Reish Galusa, Ein Kaifin es ha-Meichel Limkar Zimna Achrite. We don't force Mark to give him another document in the sly that he's selling it to Marshall. No, remember, Marshall said, look, I'm giving you the money. It's really mine. I'm saying to Reish Galusa, just I shouldn't have problems with other people. But now, I want you to write me another document that it's really mine. We don't force Mark to do that. Mark could say, I don't want people to say I'm writing a lot of shtoros on one field. However, v'im amaloi almanas, but if he says, I'll go through this deal on the condition that afterwards you write me silently a document that it's mine, then then we force Mark Limker to write that he's selling it to Marshall. I really want to thank everybody, all 29 of you, for really coming here this evening. And we are now officially ahead one daf, and that means that tomorrow night is date night. Whoever doesn't take out his wife is a rotten egg.
Happy anniversary to you, Rabbi.
Thank you very much. Also, we did the Mishnah Yomis beforehand.